An understated yet high-tech hot hatch, Skoda's second generation Fabia VRS offers sensible fun in appealing doses. There are sharper alternatives, but none that are as practical or as easy to live with, and with advanced supercharged and turbocharged petrol power, a 7-speed DSG paddle shift gearbox and a clever XDS electronic differential, this car should play a big part in helping the Czech brand appeal to a younger audience. Now, you might not think there's anything very sensible about buying a hot hatchback, but Skoda does. That's why it makes an Octavia VRS model that prioritises value and affordability alongside performance and handling, and why it was the first brand to bring diesel power to this segment in the shape of the original first generation Fabia VRS, the Octavia's smaller counterpart. But that car took sense and sensibility just a shade too far for some. Skoda needs younger buyers, which is why it needs a small hot hatch that's just a little bit more dynamic. A car much like this one, the second generation Fabia VRS. Here is high technology given its head. The 1.4 litre TSI petrol engine combines turbocharging and supercharging. The DSG semi-automatic twin-clutch gearbox has 7 speeds and steering wheel mounted paddle shifters, so you can imagine yourself in Skoda's Fabia S2000 World Rally car. And there's an XDS limited slip differential, so you can get all 178 braked horses onto the tarmac, even when you're cornering at speeds that you'd never have thought possible in a Skoda. If ever you doubted this to be a brand that could match and beat the best technology offered by its rivals, then you need to try this car. Now, it seems strange to be driving a Fabia that goes this fast. 178 brake horsepower is, after all, by far the most power that's ever been directed through the front wheels of this model, and it's nearly twice that available in the pokiest petrol variant that most customers buy in the standard range, the 105 brake horsepower 1.2 litre TSI. But BHP is one thing, pulling power is quite another. And there's no way that the 184 pounds-foot of torque that this second generation Fabia VRS generates can match the 228 pounds-foot of torque that the original diesel Fabia VRS with its TDI 130 engine could offer, all of which might leave original owners just wondering where the progress is. Wondering, that is, until they throw this car into a bend. Now, instead of the front wheels drifting wide as they would have done in the old model, a clever electronic system christened XDS mimics the action of a limited slip differential, so that instead of the inside front wheel uselessly spinning away power during hard cornering, torque is transferred to the outside front wheel, where it can be used effectively and on into forward motion. Now, if you want to establish the difference that XDS makes, there's a very easy way to do it. Just punch this traction control button on the dashboard. I guarantee that if you're hard cornering, you won't keep it off for long. If you think that's high tech, then it's nothing to what lies under the bonnet. Not for nothing has the 1.4 litre twin-charge engine that resides within this Fabia won several international awards. Working on the principle that even modern turbochargers take a while to get into their stride, it employs a supercharger as well to boost engine performance at low speeds. And with supercharger and turbocharger working in tandem, then it's possible to get a much wider response of torque right across the power range. That gives the car better low-speed torque before the supercharger is disconnected and the turbo alone ignites the surge to the red line. It's an expensive and somewhat complex solution, but very effective. The switch from supercharger to turbocharger is almost seamless and very rapid. The rest to 60 sprint time detaining you for just 7.3 seconds on the way to a top speed of 139 miles an hour, meaning that this Fabia is a match for just about anything in its class. So potent, in fact, is this engine that, rather surprisingly, no engineer across the Volkswagen Group has got around to developing a manual gearbox capable of coping with it. Which means that, as with the Seat Ibiza Cupra, the Volkswagen Polo GTI, and the 1.4 litre petrol turbocharged version of the Audi A1, you'll need to have an automatic. But it's some automatic. It's a 7-speed DSG twin clutch system that has paddle shifters on the steering wheel if you don't simply want to leave the thing in automatic to do its own thing. Now, it does have a few drawbacks. The first gear, for example, is set very low, so you find yourself having to change up as you're emerging from a junction, which means fumbling around the steering wheel because the paddle shifters are affixed to the wheel rather than being in a fixed position behind it. Get used to these little quirks though, and you'll find that it all comes together on the open road, provided you don't mind the system's unwillingness to change down until your speed has dropped low enough for the desired gear not to rev the engine beyond about 5,000 revs. On high-speed type roads though, as you're going fast through flowing bends, it all works a treat, rather suiting the mature approach of this hot hatch. It isn't an addictive experience of the kind that's served up by, say, a Renault Sport Clio 200, but it's nonetheless a very enjoyable one, and one that does come with other compensations. Take the ride quality, for example. Now, the spec sheet tells you that this car features suspension that's lowered by 20mm and has been tautened by firmer settings for the dampers, stiffer rubber bushes and tauter rear springs. Now, it all sounds like a recipe for a bone-jarring ride, but what you actually get is a car that cruises over potholes and poor services better than any car in its class. Now, ride quality isn't, I grant you, something that's like to be top of any hot hatch buyer's wish list, but it does arguably make more sense in everyday motoring than on-the-edge handling capability. Skoda has learnt to its cost with models like the Roomster that its buyers are a conservative bunch. So while the Czechs could doubtless have bought us something with the aesthetic excesses of the Fabia S2000 World Rally car, they've chosen not to. Mindful also perhaps that within the Volkswagen Group, Seat's Ibiza Cupra already fulfills that role. So the Go Faster decoration is subtle and understated. That means you get a smarter front bumper with fog lights and LEDs, 17-inch alloy wheels with red brake calipers, tinted windows, and a rear bumper that's also revised and comes complete with a diffuser and twin rear exhaust pipes. And you can pick between black, white or silver for the colour of the roof, the rear spoiler and the alloy wheels. At the wheel, the standard Fabia's well-judged driving position gets a boost from these figure-hugging sports seats and this pleasingly tactile wheel and gear knob. Now, all the controls have a dependable functionality about them, are easy to use and logically laid out. It's easy to find the ideal driving position too, thanks to a rake and reach adjustable steering wheel and a height adjustable driver's seat. The cabin ambience is pretty restrained, very similar to a standard Fabia's. But if you need reminding that there's 180 brake horsepower beneath your right foot, then Skoda has provided alloy pedals, a leather-trimmed 3-spoke sports steering wheel, and VRS logos on the seat backs, just to remind you. Overall, the impression that you have is being in a much larger car, a feeling actually rather at odds with the way that you can zip this little Fabia in and out of gaps in the traffic. The Fabia's 5 doors and roomy interior are big plus points, and with the extra 47mm of roof space built into this second generation Fabia design, you can more easily sense and feel the extra space on offer, with decent standards of head, leg and elbow room for a car that's only 4 meters long. So yes, you'll be comfortable, provided you're not one of 3 fully sized adults crammed into the back seat here. Boot capacity in this hatch stands at a very useful 300 litres, and there are lots of nice touches to ensure that you can make the most of it. This parcel shelf slides down behind the rear seats when it's not in use, when you want to carry slightly taller items. There's a hook here for your Friday night curry or for your shopping bags, and a little area that can be compartmentalised off if you want to keep your eggs away from your iron brew. Now, if this isn't enough space, then of course you can push forward the 60/40 split folding rear seats to liberate 1,163 litres of room. It's a slightly fiddly process because ideally you've got to remove the rear head restraints to get the backs of the seats really flat. Now, if that's not quite enough space for you, then there's an estate version of this Fabia VRS that offers either 480 litres or 1,460 litres, depending on whether the rear seats are in use. That estate can even carry a payload of over half a tonne. Expect to pay somewhere in the £16,000 to £17,000 bracket for your Fabia VRS, with an £850 premium to find if you want the estate version over this 5-door hatch. Now, these figures, rather paradoxically, at the same time as making this the most expensive small Skoda in history, also make this car less expensive than all its main rivals. Now, let's start with the Volkswagen Group products that are essentially the same as this car underneath. Now, many potential Fabia VRS buyers will reject Seat's Ibiza Cupra and the 1.4 litre turbocharged petrol version of Audi's A1 out of hand because they both only come with 3 doors. But for the record, even the less expensive Seat is £1,300 more. When it comes to 5 doors, well, Volkswagen's Polo GTI does offer that, but for a rather breathtaking premium of over £3,000 more than this Skoda. So what about other rivals though? Well, all have only 3 doors, all are smaller and all are pricier. You're looking at around £1,500 more than this Skoda for a Renault Sport Clio 200, around £1,800 more than a Fabia if you want to get yourself into a Mini Cooper S, and around £2,400 more if you want a Vauxhall Corsa VXR. Whichever Fabia VRS body style you choose, hatch or estate, you should find it to be decently equipped. Standard kit runs to 17-inch alloy wheels, tinted rear windows, LED daytime running lights, a 3-spoke leather-covered multi-function steering wheel with paddle shifters, an 8-speaker CD stereo that's MP3 and iPod compatible, air conditioning, a trip computer, electric front windows, electrically operated and heated door mirrors, an alarm, sport seats, a hill holder clutch, and tyre pressure monitoring. Buyers can choose to have their alloy wheels finished not only in silver but also in white or dark grey, and they can choose to get their vehicle roof finished not only in body colour but alternatively in white or black. Safety kit includes ABS brakes, ESP stability control, traction control, Isofix child seat fastenings for the outer rear seats, and twin front, side and curtain airbags. Now, Skoda has good reason to hope that the switch from diesel to petrol power won't put off too many buyers of the previous model from shifting to this one. This second generation Fabia VRS's combined cycle fuel return, 45.6 miles to the gallon, is after all of a level that would have seemed incredible just a few years ago for any kind of hot hatch. The 146 grams per kilometre of CO2 return isn't bad either. Rivals like Vauxhall's Corsa VXR and the Renault Sport Clio 200 can't get near to returns like these. With this Fabia VRS, Skoda is targeting younger buyers by seeking older ones. Older, that is, within the context of the hot hatch segment. People who would normally have to abandon this sector of the market in search of greater practicality and lower running costs. Yet people who'd still like a compact, powerful car that's great fun to drive. Such is the appeal of this model. Its semi-automatic gearbox won't be for everyone, and really red-blooded drivers will probably want something that looks a bit more dynamic and shakes their teeth out over bumps. For everyone else though, this Fabia's blend of spaciousness and sensible speed will have real appeal, especially at prices that significantly undercut most rivals. It's a more mature approach to enjoying yourself. Very sensible, very Skoda.